I am not teaching, I am publicly learning. But hi and welcome to Learning for the Life in the UK test part 174. Written since 1945, and we're just answering your questions at the end of a chapter. We're through with a chapter. While doing the Pilatic leg training, and if you participate in the Pilatic leg training, that is at your ask. So let's start with Pilatic leg training. So we're having one leg out, and with a flex foot, and we're bringing the leg just up and again back down. So the British inventions of the 20th century, the one named here. You do not need to remember dates of births and deaths. So we should learn the inventions. And when we had said us here, we should not just learn the inventions listed here, all 50, able to identify. And when they were invented, so we also should learn when they were invented. And you also need to be able to identify the inventors. So you should also know who invented that. So let's just take one new one. So Sir Christopher Cockerell. He was a British inventor and he invented hovercraft. This is, as far as I know, the ship with a balloon in it. The hovercraft. And now with the other leg out and up and down. Can you remember it anyhow? There's Craft and there's Christopher Cockerell. 2 C's. Hovercraft, Christopher Cockerell. We're not really learning the person, we're just learning a name. We have no picture, nothing. I have no idea who Christopher Cockerell is. I barely know what a hovercraft is. We're not learning any persons or anything. We're just learning a name. You could just learn 10 French vocabularies. Christopher Cockerell. I don't even know how it's pronounced. It's just the sound I try to remember. So Christopher Cockerell. Hovercraft. So hovercraft, Sir Christopher Cockerell. It's Francis. Not Crispy. It's Francis Crick. Francis Crick, and there's a C in Francis. Francis Crick. It's not Frank or something with CK, it's just Francis with a C and then Crick. Now, we're having we're having the leg straight out and we're bending it at the knee. Francis Crick. Francis Crick, the DNA. Francis Crick, the DNA. So we have the helix. Francis Crick, the helix with the DNA. And now we have new Sir Christopher Crick of the hovercraft. So the hovercraft was Sir Christopher Crick. It was Cockerell. It has absolutely no meaning. It's just a sound. I have no idea. I don't know both names. Kickerel, Cockerell. It makes no sense, no difference for me. I don't know the person. I don't know the name. It has absolutely no meaning for me. It's just a sound. If it's written with a CK or C, it's actually just the point. I think the thing which actually bothers me is that I'm just here and repeating a name over and over, and that is a bit insulting, offending for the people who have that name. Because I'm just saying the name, the other language anybody. It's not nice to repeat a name over and over without knowing what the name is, how it's pronounced, and not be able to identify the syllables. It's just Cockerell. Francis Crick, Kirby, Crispy, Crick. It's Crick. It makes absolutely no difference for me, and it is insulting for the people who have that name. And I'm pretty sure most of the people who are learning with having the same thing. There's no picture, nothing to their lives, absolutely nothing. It's just syllables. I could learn a completely different language. It would make the same if it were a language which I am not even able to understand the letters, if I would learn them. And we're having the next exercise, we're having the leg out and we're bringing it to the side and again in. So, but we are able to do it. Sir Christopher Cockerell, he made the hovercraft. And that was the question. So we should be able to identify all these inventions. And then the events since 1979. It's again such a big question. It's a way too open question. And since when, up to when, I think they mean when, and how detailed do they mean them? It could be very detailed. Let's go through them. We're having time for it. We're changing the leg. Now, 1979, Margaret Thatcher was voted in. She was leader for Conservative. And she stayed for 11 years until 1990. There were structural changes, and many things who were previously nationalized became privatized, and imposed legal controls on trade union powers. And when the powers of trade unions became controlled. We don't even know what trade unions are, but okay, that's anyway our fault. And we're doing the next exercise. We're having a long leg out, and we're tapping the floor with a flex foot. We're bringing up to the other side, and we're tapping again onto the floor. So trade union power was controlled, and the City of London, there was deregulation, and that searched that investments, insurance, and financial services could settle there. When there was the Falkland War or crisis or whatever, Argentina invaded in 1982. 1982, we should remember that date. That would be one of the things that could actually be asked, because the other things are pretty complex, maybe. But it was 1982 that Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands, and that the British overseas, it is a British overseas, but a British naval task force. That's not what I want to say. It is a British overseas territory, and the naval task force was sent. They had to change flag to reconquer the island, which was successful. And Roald Dahl, which is not part of the, maybe. So Roald Dahl brought books out. He was in the Royal Air Force. He started to make books in the 1940s, and well-known works are Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and George's Marvelous Medicine. George's Marvelous Medicine. Several of his books have been made into films. So, and then the Labour Party in 1997 came with Tony Blair, and these are the things we don't really understand. There was a Scottish Parliament introduced and a Welsh Assembly. And we're going to start in 3 seconds with a 90 seconds plank. So 2, 1, and we're starting. And be rather too high and too low with the back, and tuck the tab on it. And the Scottish Parliament has substantial powers to legislate. The Welsh government, the Welsh Assembly, was given fewer legislative powers, but considerable control over public services. In Northern Ireland, there was a successful peace process, and it resulted in the Good Friday Agreement, that was signed in 1998. And then there was a Northern Ireland Assembly, elected in 1999, suspended in 2002, reinstated in 2007. Reinstated until 2007. That means it ended in 2007? Most paramilitary groups in Northern Ireland have decommissioned their arms and are inactive. Gordon Brown took over as a Prime Minister. Conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq, and throughout the 90s, Britain played the leading role in the liberation of Kuwait and the global war on terror. And British troops were fighting in Iraq and in Afghanistan as part of a United Nations mandate 50-nation International Security Assistance Force coalition. And that is made within the invitation of the Afghan government, and at the invitation of the Afghan government. So we're saying that the British troops were invited by the Afghan government to come to ensure that Afghan territory. I think we use for 90 seconds. I think we have 90 seconds. That is meant with the invitation to ensure that Afghanistan becomes more secure, and the terrorist groups no longer can use it as a safe haven. So it means that we can go to a safe haven. And, for example, Al-Qaeda, who did the 9/11 attack. And the idea was to give over slowly the responsibility over Afghanistan to the Afghan government. And that was more or less done, but the Afghan government couldn't hold it, and the Taliban took over. And then in 2010, the Conservative Party won, and they did not win. They needed to form a coalition in 2010 with the Liberals. David Cameron became Prime Minister. And when David Cameron remained in after 2015, the next election, where they won the Conservatives from the majority, and then there was a referendum on the 23rd June 2016, and 51.9% voted for yes to leave, and when the UK left formally 31st January 2020, and after David Cameron, it became Theresa May on the 13th July 2016, who was Prime Minister, and then Boris Johnson on the 21st July 2019, and I think after that it was Liz Truss for a month, then Rishi Sunak, and now Keir Starmer. So these are the events since 1979. And we can now list one more. It's Sir Christopher Cochrane who invented the hovercraft. Now, who have we else? We're having JLB, so John Logie-Baird, who invented the television, in the 1920s developed, and in 1932, 10 years after the BBC made the radio broadcast, and 2 years, so it was 14 years, so it must be 4 years. I remember 14 years. So it was 1936, that the television was broadcasted. It was 1936, 14 years. 14, we're staying with 14. And then we had Sir Robert Watson Watt, who made the radar. Robert Watson Watt, who made the radar. First successful test 1935. And then we had at Jodrell, Sir Bernard Lovell, who made the biggest radar telescope. It was a telescope. A radar telescope. It was a radio telescope. What's the difference between a radio telescope and a radio station? And then we have Alan Turing, the Turing machine, that was developed during the 1930s. And when we have, let's make here insulin co-discovered. That was insulin. That was John McLeod. Insulin. I don't know. It's quite simple for some reason. John McLeod insulin. And when we have here Francis Crick. I went through Francis with a C and Crick with a C. Francis Crick. That was the helix. So the DNA structure. He was one of the people who got a Nobel Prize for it. So technically, British invention. The other was done at London and Cambridge University. But let's say 3 people got the Nobel Prize for it, and everyone, let's say, just assume, had done the same part in it. Then a person with British nationality would have done just a third of it. So is it now a British invention? It was done in Cambridge and London. So we're having it's not an invention; it's a discovery. It's written like that here. Was discovered. The structure of the DNA was discovered. DNA molecule was discovered. So, the British inventions of the 20th century. Is it no invention? It is an invention because they had to probably invent many different things with which it was possible to discover it. Or something like that. But in a way, if they are that detailed that we should know if it was that year or that year. Because for us it makes a difference that it was 1932 and not 1933 that the television started. The first successful test from Glasgow to London. Now imagine they are that detailed and are saying list the inventions and we are listing a discovery. In a way, this is something which is actually way more important to know to differentiate between something like that and in leading a workforce, so if it's about education, to know if someone is giving you a discovery or an invention, that you are able to know if the people, what they are producing. This is actually a skill which is actually important for leadership and to manage a group and so on. So that could be something actually taught in school, that you know if someone asks for an invention, that you not write a discovery. If you write a discovery, you get no point. They are in many things not that detailed. Now we're having Alan Turing, we have just a minute I want to go through. When we're having rejected into this, it's Sir Frank Whittle. I'm not sure if Sir Frank Whittle, if he would be alive or his children, are happy with me saying it that way. But what should I do? I should learn 20 names or something. I don't even know how they are pronounced or anything. I don't know who the persons look like, who they are. They're not anything. I just have 20 times 3 words. It's just 60 sounds. So, Sir Frank Whittle. Rejected. And when we had Sir Christopher Cockerell Hoovercraft. And now let's take on new, we're doing it again. And now we're having the persons, Britain and France. So do we have to learn that? This is the Concorde, and that started to carry passengers in 1976 and first through 1969. And when we tried in 2003, so what should we now learn? Let's do it the next time. I thank you very much, and until next time.